So, here we have a statement from the US Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, who diplomatically hints that the Biden administration is against drone strike and other means of targeting Russia's oil refinery industry.
Certainly, those attacks could have a knock-on effect in terms of the global energy situation. But quite frankly, I think Ukraine is better served in going after tactical and operational targets that can directly influence the current fight.
He suggests that Ukraine should focus on what really affects the course of the war. But if the budget of a country engaged in aggressive war, I am of course talking about Russia, is half reliant on revenues from oil, gas and derivatives, then what could be more important for sustaining the war for this country? Well, it is obvious. Destroying oil refineries equals a reduction in revenue to the Russian budget and consequently a decrease in the ability to finance this war. Not to mention the direct impact on the war, as tanks, planes, ships and logistics daily require huge volumes of fuel to sustain Russian military machine. It is clear that Mr. Austin is concerned about Biden's rating, which could be negatively affected by the rise in fuel prices in the global economy if Ukraine doesn't stop destroying Russian oil refineries. This is all clear to me. Obviously, it is clear to Kremlin, which sees these weaknesses in the United States, and it will obviously exploit it, as it already is. Hey, my name is Alex, and this is a quick update on the Russian-Ukrainian war from the perspective of someone living within it. Furthermore, to confirm this, Celesta Volander, Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs, stated that Russia's oil refineries are civilian infrastructure. Even though it is Ukraine's sovereign decision, such strikes cause concern in the United States. The statement was further motivated by words such as, since Ukraine adheres to the highest standards in the rules of warfare and is part of the European democratic world.
When the Ukrainians hit Russia's oil and gas infrastructure, the Biden administration came out and condemned the Ukrainians for hitting Russia's oil and gas infrastructure and suggested that they should not do that again. Can you tell me why, while Russia is attacking Ukrainians' oil and gas and energy sector, why shouldn't the Ukrainians attack the Russian oil and gas and energy sector?
The issue on attacking critical infrastructure is when those are civilian targets, we have concerns because Ukraine holds itself to the highest standards of observing the laws of armed conflict, and that's one of the elements of being a European democracy.
But the Russians are attacking the oil and gas infrastructure in Ukraine, correct?
Absolutely.
And if you're going to win a war, you can't sit back and take punches and not deliver punches. So why shouldn't the Ukrainians attack the oil and gas infrastructure in Russia?
Congressman, we have concerns about striking at civilian targets when we support countries. Again, this is Ukraine's sovereign decision, but we express those concerns.
But those oil and gas infrastructures in Russia are owned by the Kremlin, correct? It's not like they're owned by a private corporation that have shareholders and private assets are being destroyed.
They are owned by private Russian citizens who are part of the Putin regime. That is correct.
I mean, it makes sense to me that we should destroy them.
But these are obvious manipulation. What do democracy standards have to do with destroying the sector of which the entire economy of the aggressor relies? And how can you call civilian infrastructure something that fuels the aggressor's army and determines whether tanks will roll and planes will attack or not? And I don't even mention that there have been no condemnation of numerous Russian attacks on Ukrainian fuel and energy complex, including the Kremlin refinery, which was practically disabled in April 2022 from the US. Meanwhile, Gabrielius Landsbergis, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, reminds the American administration via X network how allies during Second World War identified Germany's fuels infrastructure as the most priority targets. Obviously, if you really want to defeat someone, you have to strike back. You cannot win a war without significant less potential in arms, finances and manpower, without the ability to hit the economy where it hurts. All this raises a simple question. Is it only about Biden's rating, or rather the US don't really want Ukraine to win this war at all? Well, then admit it openly, instead of saying we will support Ukraine as much as is needed, and so on. And yes, I do understand that everything is more complicated than it seems. There is global politics, China, North Korea, or even possibly Martians, but there are people dying every day on the front line, while politicians play all these geostrategic games. And who gives a guarantee that their decisions are correct? They are all people, and people make mistakes. And I don't want these mistakes to be counted with the lives of our people. Meanwhile, the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, noted that would be unthinkable for us not to be able to provide Ukraine with 7 Patriot batteries, given that Western armies have about 100 of them. Well, dear Joseph, with such statements from US officials, I fear they soon might ask you to hand over these systems to Russia to defend its oil refineries. Judging by the map, if you allocate about 20 of such systems to Russia, it will be able to defend its refineries within the reach of Ukrainian drone. And your defense will not suffer as well. And let's be completely honest, you don't use them anyway. Russian missiles easily fly over Polish territory, which is part of NATO, and sometimes even fall themselves, attacking Ukraine, and you don't shoot them down. I'm joking, of course, but that is how it all looks if we are being honest. Meanwhile, Russia has no any concern about global prices, Biden rating, Putin rating, and is striking blows to Ukraine's energy complex. This time the Tripilya thermal power station near Kyiv was hit by a missile strike. Center Energo reports that the Tripilya station was completely destroyed during the nighttime attack. But don't worry, Mr. Austin, it is not a Russian oil refinery on fire. It is only the Tripilya thermal power station, one of the largest in Ukraine. Overall, 57 aerial targets were destroyed in the skies over Ukraine at night, according to official statements from the Ukrainian Air Forces. This time, the Russians deployed 82 means of aerial attack: 20 cruise missiles, 6 aeroballistic missiles, 12 guided anti-aircraft missiles S-300, 40 strike UAV of the Shad type, 4 guided aviation missiles X-59. As a result of combat operations, the following were destroyed: 16 cruise missiles, 39 strike UAVs of the Shad type, and 2 guided aviation missiles X-59. It is worth reminding that all these weapons for destruction and killing, as well as the means of delivery or launching them, operate on fuel obtained including from the oil refineries and chemical industry of Russia. Meanwhile, Skim's project published satellite images of the before and after of the strike on the aircraft factory in Borisogledsk, Voronezh Oblast, Russia. These drone strikes were discussed in a previous issue, you can check it out. In the frames we can notice a newly created passage in one of the factory buildings carefully crafted by Ukrainian drones. By the way, this enterprise is the only one in Russia that repairs Frontline aviation missiles, including the X-55 and X-22, as well as ground-based communication and radio-technical flight support equipment. And it is interesting now, will there be any warnings from Western partners in this case? I'll just quickly remind you that the last time a drone visited the assembly plant for Shad-type drones in Russia, the spokesperson for the United Nations, Secretary General Stefan Dujarric, expressed his concern. Honestly, it is sometimes just not clear whose side the West is on. Something has also been right in Kursk, Russia, at the facility of the Zelenogorsk mining and processing plant. The Mikhailovsky mining and processing plant in Zelenogorsk is part of Russia and CIS's largest iron ore company, Metalloinvest, and is one of the leaders in the Russian mining and metallurgical industry. This plant conducts open pit mining on the Mikhailovsky deposit of the Kursk magnetic anomaly, the world's largest iron ore basin. So, roughly speaking, it is the place from where Russia sources metal for tanks, vehicles, missiles and bombs. And I hope this doesn't cause concern for the Biden administration. What if iron prices rise worldwide? It is a sarcasm. At the same time, in the Belgorod region, Russians are not feeling very comfortable either. I'll remind you that the Belgorod region of Russia borders the Zaporizhia region of Ukraine. Pictures are appearing online showing that the employees of Lenta supermarket chain are better equipped than Russian soldiers. Couriers of Belgorod stores have also been issued helmets and bulletproof vests. Additionally, bulletproof films has been applied to the windows of stores, and concrete blocks have been installed along the buildings for additional wall protection. At the same time, Russian artillery and mortar strikes have hit about 20 populated areas bordering the Belgorod region, Kharkiv Oblast, Ukraine. Damage includes a production building, 7 civilian houses, the building of 2 cafes, a garage and utility building. There is no information about casualties. Meanwhile, while leaders of Western countries expresses concern for various reasons, Russia's propaganda threatens to come and change the future of Europe. And I wouldn't take all these words lightly. If they say it, then such scenarios are real, at least discussed in the Kremlin. We want to change the future of Europe. You have ruined your present, European gentlemen. Ultimately, you have chosen these morons who lead you. We want to change your future, which means 200-250 million killed and means Europeans. That will be the price for a nuclear war. Such things are regularly discussed on the central television channels of the Russian Federation. And let's delve now from the high offices closer to the ground, to the ordinary people and soldiers, and take a look on the situation on the front lines. Liman direction. Russian troops are processing east of Terny, along Kruglaya ravine and in the eastern part of Ivanovka ravine. In the vicinity of latter, the Ukrainian armed forces carried out artillery strikes against the enemy. Siversky direction. East of Verkhny Kamensk, the Ukrainian armed forces repelled an attack in the northern part of the reference point in the area indicated on the map. On the Chasiv Yar direction, no change have been recorded, but the city itself is constantly subject to bombardments. Here is how its streets looks now. Avdiivka direction. In Semenivka, Ukrainian drone operators attacks enemy position with drone drops in the specified area. The outskirts of Toninke are turning into graveyards of Russian equipment. Over 70 lost units of Russian equipment are seen in the photos as of April 6. In total, in these photos, there are 82 units of equipment, including 5 belong to the Ukrainian Defense Forces and 77 belong to the Russians. In recent weeks, the Russians have been conducting banzai attacks in columns. Additionally, there are about 24 more units of military equipment in fields and plantations, either individually or in pairs. They are not marked on this map. There is also fresh enemy equipment destroyed after April 6, but there are no photos yet. Kurakhov direction. Active combat operation continue of the southeastern outskirts of Krasnogorivka. A Russian assault group landed in residential buildings, where the Ukrainian armed forces promptly inflicted fire damage on the concentration of enemy personnel at the point on the map. On the footage, another enemy attack near the southeastern outskirts of Krasnogorivka. The Russians again attempt to infiltrate the positions of our paratroopers from the 80th Brigade. The Russians, in the number of a platoon of infantry with 4 BMPs and supported by 1 tank, conducted assault actions. The attack was repulsed. The situation on the outskirts of the city continues to deteriorate. In the central part of Novomikhailivka, Russian forces continue to press along Central Street. Ukrainian armed forces attacked enemy infantry with an FPV drone at the point on the map. South of the Novomikhailivka, the enemy entrenched itself along 2 belts of trees. On the Berdyansk direction, the Ukrainian armed forces with the forces of the 58th Brigade successfully conducted a counterattack south of Urozhainy. Robotino direction. In the southern part of Robotino, Russian forces continue assault action along Silska and Mira Street. Drone footage from the Ukrainian armed forces captured the destruction of an enemy armored personnel carrier BTR-82A at the point marked on the map. Battles are ongoing with varying success. Footage shows the joint operation of the 3rd Brigade and the Ronin detachment of the 65th Brigade, destroying a Russian APC in the central of the village. Russians continue to penetrate the village, attempting to consolidate in the ruins. Much much blood of Ukrainians' finest sons has been shed for this village. It is worth listening to and reading what the Russians themselves write about the situation on this front. Today, our forces, meaning Russian soldiers, advised by the effort of the 70th Motorized Rifle Regiment, attempt to attack the enemy in Robotyno, unsuccessfully. It has now been decided to finally withdraw the 76th Air Assault Division from the Robotyno area. The division is completely decimated. This is how Teplinsky commands. And at the end of this episode, I would like to show you footage of how Russian soldier was captured by Ukrainian soldiers with the help of Mavic drone. Note the treatment of the prisoner, and now compare what they do with prisoners and what we do. And I remind you that according to the only confirmed facts of the Prosecutor General Office of Ukraine, we know about 54 Ukrainian prisoners of war executed by the Russians. And that wraps up today's video. If you found this information helpful or somehow insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.